Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horse, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. Hello there, hello there, hello there. Hello there, Yulian20. Congratulations on getting first. Hello, 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 all you fine, wonderful scholars out there. I hope you're all doing well wherever you are across this vast cosmic multiverse. And I want to do a nice shout out to our newest scholar, Lorelei Strathiel. I think I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Congratulations and thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello there, Firefly. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here. So, my dear scholars, how are you all doing this fine afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are, whenever you are? Oh, hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Julian20, pretty good. Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Oh, as for myself, I don't know. I'm doing okay, I suppose. Little weary, little tired, but I'll try and push myself through, as they say. It's all for you, my dear scholars. I'm doing this all for you. Oh, and I will suffer for it, of course. Oh. Mm. But yes, indeed, it's been a very tiring time, and I forecast even more tiredness tomorrow. Oh, I am not looking forward to tomorrow, unfortunately. But that is tomorrow, and today is today, unless today is tomorrow, and tomorrow is yesterday. When is today? I mean, if time is relative, then who's to say tomorrow isn't today and tomorrow is yesterday? But that would mean yesterday is today. I think I better move on. Yes. Oh, but yes, of course. Tonight we are continuing our reading stream of The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. I'm trying to remember exactly where we left off. I think we left off with Robin Hood had was the sheriff attempted to trick Robin Hood into being captured through a archery contest, which of course failed. And then Will Stuteley went out and got captured, and Robin Hood, of course, rescued him. And yeah, it's been a pretty busy time all around. Oh, congratulations on the 10 congratulations on the 10 stream streak, Julian20. Oh, that is quite a flat. Oh, oh my goodness, my attention is all over the place tonight, it seems. But yes, tonight we are reading more of the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. I have to make that clear. It is the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, not simply the Adventures of Robin Hood. The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. That makes all the difference, obviously. I mean, Merry Men, Merry Adventures. I suppose it's in the same category. Um, but yes, it's been quite a long book so far. Even I think we've only gone through 4 chapters. I think I better somehow find a way to get us more chapters in this bunch. So, my dear scholars, I digress. Shall we continue our reading of The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood? Or would you like to hear me blab some more? Because I'm not sure what else to talk about. Oh, Yulian20 says yes, please. You're tired of hearing me. You're tired of hearing me talk, dear scholars? Is that it? No, that's not what I want. tired of hearing me talk? You don't want to hear me talk anymore. Is that it? Is that the truth? Horace, tell me, tell me they're not tired of me. Horace, you're not helping things. Okay, I'm fine now. Oh, no, I'm not. It would help if I actually hit the right button. Oh my goodness. I really have to get used to the I don't use my emotional triggers that often, and I need to get used to the hotkeys again. I can't remember what they are. Oh my goodness. But anyway, so then. So then, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage of your liking, dim down the lights if necessary, and let us begin our reading of the merry adventures of Robin Hood. A little drink here. Part second, in which shall be told how Robin Hood turned butcher, and how he revenged himself upon the sheriff. Also the famous adventures that befell Little John at the Nottingham archery match, and how he entered the sheriff's service. Oh, interesting. Um, so I wish you could see the picture at the start of this chapter, or at least see the description under the picture. It's a picture of Robin Hood basically cutting up some meat at a table and kissing a woman. And the description says Robin turns butcher and sells his meat in Nottingham. There's a very, very stern looking man in the background just staring at them. It's like, what the? He's. I'm sorry, the combination of the description with the picture. Congratulations, Private Maverick, on getting 10 stream in a row. 10 stream streak. Oh my goodness. So we're going to see Robin sell his meat. I'm sorry. That is childish of me. I know. Excuse me. 1. Robin Hood turns butcher. Now, after all these things had happened, and it became known to Robin Hood how the sheriff had tried 3 times to make him captive, he said to himself, "If I have the chance, I will make our worshipful sheriff pay right well for that which he hath done to me. Maybe I may bring him some time to Sherwood Forest, and have him to a right merry feast with us." For when Robin Hood caught a baron or a squire, or a fat abbot or bishop, he brought them to the greenwood tree and feasted them before he lightened their purse. But in the meantime Robin Hood and his band lived quietly in the Sherwood Forest, without showing their faces abroad, for Robin knew that it would not be wise for him to be seen in the neighborhood of Nottingham, those in authority being very wroth with him. But though they did not go abroad, they lived a merry life within the woodlands, spending the days in shooting at garlands hung about upon a willow wand at the end of the glade, the leafy aisles ringing with merry jests and laughter, for whoever missed the garland was giving a sound buffet, which, if delivered by Little John, never failed to topple over the unfortunate yeoman. So in other words, they're hitting each other if they lose. Then they had bouts of wrestling and of cudgel play, so that every day they gained in skill and strength. You know, I'm gonna pause for a moment. If you think about it, I was just thinking about this today. Living in the woods as an outlaw actually would be pretty awful. I mean, they make it sound all fun living in the woods. I mean, you get the meat, the ale, and all that. but you're also, excuse me, I don't know why the camera's just, there we are. But at the same time, you're also living in the woods. When it rains, you pretty much have no shelter except under a tree if the weather's bad. Winter has to be abysmal. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, my dear scholars. I have Virgil apparently deciding he was going to do a project and not tell me. And of course, that means he needs my help once in a while. Because, of course, my dear scholars, people don't understand schedules for some reason. Okay, where were we? Okay, where were we? How? I'm sorry, my dear scholars, for the interruption. Expect a few more interruptions tonight. Thus they dwelt for nearly a year, and in that time Robin Hood often turned over in his mind many means of making an even score with the sheriff. At last he began to fret at his confinement. Yeah, I've got Virgil in the background moving around. Oh, sorry, my dear scholars. Let's continue. At last he began to fret at his confinement. So one day he took up his stout cudgel and set forth to seek adventure, strolling blithely along until he came to the edge of Sherwood. There, as he rambled along the sunlit road, he met a lusty young butcher driving a fine mare, and riding a stout new cart, all hung about with meat. Merrily whistled the butcher as he jogged along, for he was going to the market, and the day was fresh and sweet, making his heart blithe within him. "Good morrow to thee, jolly fellow," quoth Robin. "Thou seemest happy this merry morn." "Ay, that am I," quoth the jolly butcher, "and why should I not be so? Am I not hale in wind and limb? Have I not the bonniest lass in all Nottinghamshire? And lastly, am I not to be married to her on Thursday next in sweet Locksley town?" "Ha!" said Robin, "comest thou from Locksley town? Well do I know that fair place for miles about, and well do I know each hedgerow and gentle pebbly stream, and even all the bright little fishes therein, for there I was born and bred. Now where goest thou with thy meat, my fair friend?" "I go to the market at Nottingham town to sell my beef and my mutton," answered the butcher. "But who art thou that comest from Locksley town?" "A yeoman am I, good friend, and men do call me Robin Hood." Why would he reveal himself? I mean, he is a wanted criminal. "Now by Our Lady's grace," cried the butcher, "well do I know thy name, and many a time have I heard thy deeds both sung and spoken of. But heaven forbid that thou shouldest take aught of me. An honest man am I, and have wronged neither man nor maid. So trouble me not, good master, as I have never troubled thee." "Nay, heaven forbid indeed," quoth Robin, "that I should take from thee, jolly fellow. Not so much as 1 farthing would I take from thee, for I love a fair Saxon face like thine right well." Again, Saxons and Normans weren't fighting at this point. "More especially when it cometh from Locksley town, and most especially when the man that owneth is to marry a bonny lass on Thursday next. But come, tell me for what price thou wilt sell all thy meat and thy horse and cart." "At 4 marks do I value meat, cart, and mare," quoth the butcher. "But if I do not sell all my meat, I will not have 4 marks in value." Then Robin Hood plucked the purse from his girdle, and quoth he, Here in this purse are 6 marks. Now I would fain be a butcher for the day, and sell my meat in Nottingham town. Wilt thou close a bargain with me, and take 6 marks for thine outfit?" "Now may the blessings of all the saints fall on thine honest head," cried the butcher right joyfully, as he leapt down from his cart and took the purse that Robin held out to him. "Nay," quoth Robin, laughing loudly, "many do like me and wish me well, but few call me honest. Now get thee gone back to thy lass, and give her a sweet kiss from me." So saying, he donned the butcher's apron, and climbing into the cart, he took the reins in his hand, and drove off through the forest to Nottingham town. When he came to Nottingham, he entered that part of the market where butchers stood, and took up his inn in the best place he could find. Inn meaning a stand for selling, my dear scholars. Next he opened his stall, and spread his meat upon the bench. Then taking his cleaver and steel, and clattering them together, he trolled aloud in merry tones. Oh goodness, there's a song. Give me a second, my dear scholars. "Now come ye lasses and eke ye dames, and buy your meat from me. For 3 pennyworths of meat I sell for the charge of 1 penny." Oh my goodness, I'm an awful sinner right now. "Lambs have I that hath fed upon naught but the dainty daisies paid, and the violet sweet, and the daffodil that grow fair streams beside." Oh my, that is awful. I am sorry, my dear scholars. And beef have I from the heathery wolds, and mutton from dales all green, and veal as white as a maiden's brow, and with mother's milk I ween. Then come ye lasses and eke ye dames, come and buy your meat from me, for 3 pennyworths of meat I sell, for the charge of 1 penny. I apologize, my dear scholars, I was completely off tune there. It was horrible. Thus he sang blithely, while all who stood near listened amazingly because he is a terrible singer apparently. Then, when he had finished, he clattered the steel and cleaver still more loudly, shouting lustily, "Now, who'll buy? Who'll buy? Full fixed prices have I. 3 pennyworths of meat I sell to a fat friar of priest for 6 pence, for I want not their custom. Stout aldermen I charge 3 pence, for it doth not matter to me whether they buy or not. To buxom dames I sell 3 pennyworths of meat for 1 penny, for I like their custom well. But to the bonny lass that hath a liking for a good tight butcher, oh my goodness, no. I charge not but 1 fair kiss, for I like her custom the best of all." I don't need to know about a bonny lass who likes a good tight butcher. No thank you. No thank you. Then all began to stare and wonder and crowd around, laughing, for never was such selling heard of in all Nottingham town. But when they came to buy, they found it as he had said, for he gave goodwife or dame as much meat for 1 penny as they could buy elsewhere for 3. And when a widow or a poor woman came to him, he gave her flesh for nothing. But when a merry lass came and gave him a kiss, he charged not 1 penny for his meat. Charged not 1 penny for his meat. I don't know if they wrote this on purpose. I'm sure they didn't, but oh my goodness. And many such came to his stall, for his eyes were as blue as the skies of June, and he laughed merrily, and giving to each full measure. Thus he sold his meat so fast that no butcher that stood near him could sell anything. Then they began to talk amongst themselves, and some said, "This must be some thief who has stolen cart, horse, and meat." But others said, "Nay, when did ye ever see a thief who parted with his goods so freely and merrily? This must be some prodigal who hath sold his father's land, and would fain live merrily while the money lasts." And these latter being the greater number, the others came round, one by one, to their way of thinking. Then some of the butchers came to him to make his acquaintance. "Come, brother," quoth one who was the head of them all, "we be all of one trade, so wilt thou go dine with us? For this day the sheriff hath asked all the butcher guild to feast with him at the guild hall. There will be stout fare and much to drink, and that thou likest, or I must mistake thee." "Now beshrew my heart," quoth jolly Robin, "that would deny a butcher. And moreover I will go dine with you all, my sweet lads, and that as fast as I can hie. Heh, I don't know what that means. Heh. Hie. Heh. Odd way of saying it. Whereupon, having sold all his meat, he closed his stall and went with them to the great guild hall. There the sheriff had already come in state, and with him many butchers. When Robin and those that were with him came in, all laughing at some merry jest he had been telling them, those that were near the sheriff whispered to him, "Yon is a right mad blade, for he hath sold more meat for 1 penny than 1 penny this day than we could sell for 3. And to whatsoever merry lass gave him a kiss, he gave meat for naught." And others said, "He is some prodigal that hath sold his land for silver and gold, and meaneth to spend all right merrily." Then the sheriff called Robin to him, not knowing him in his butcher's dress, and made him sit close to him on his right hand, for he loved a rich young prodigal, especially when he thought that he might lighten that prodigal's pockets into his own most worshipful purse. So he made much of Robin and laughed and talked with him more than with any of the others. Gonna get another drink. At last the dinner was ready to be served, and the sheriff bade Robin say grace. So Robin stood up and said, "Now heaven bless us all, and eke good meat and good sack within this house, and may all butchers be and remain as honest men as I am." At this all laughed, the sheriff loudest of all, for he said to himself, "Surely this is indeed some prodigal, and perchance I may empty his purse of some of the money that the fool throweth about so freely." Then he spake aloud to Robin, saying, "Thou art a jolly young blade, and I love thee mightily." And he smote Robin upon the shoulder. Then Robin laughed loudly too. "Yea," quoth he, "I know thou dost love a jolly blade, for didst thou not have jolly Robin Hood at thy shooting match, and didst thou not gladly give him a bright golden arrow for his own?" At this the sheriff looked grave, and all the gold members too, so that none laughed but Robin, only some winked slyly at each other. "Come, fill us some sack," cried Robin. "Let us e'er be merry while we may, for man is but dust, and he hath but a span to live here." Julian 20, time to go bye-bye. Ah, well, have a good time, Julian. I hope you have a good evening. Thank you for coming. "Let us e'er be merry while we may, for man is but dust, and he hath but a span to live here till the worm getteth him, as our good gossip Swathold saith. So let life be merry while it lasts, say I. Nay, never look down in the mouth, Sir Sheriff. Who knowest but that thou mayest catch Robin Hood yet, if thou drinkest less good sack and Malmsey, and bringest down the fat about thy potch, and the dust from out thy brain. Be merry, man." Then the sheriff laughed again, but not as though he liked the jest, while the butchers said one to another, "Before heaven never have we seen such a mad rollicking blade. Mayhap, though, he will make the sheriff mad." "How now, brothers?" cried Robin. "Be merry. Nay, never count over your farthings, for by this and by that I will pay this shot myself, and though it cost 200 pounds. So let no man draw up his lip, nor thrust his forefinger into his purse, for I swear that neither butcher nor sheriff shall pay 1 penny for this feast." "Now thou art a right merry soul," quoth the sheriff, "and I wot thou must have many a head of horned beasts, and many an acre of land, that thou dost spend thy money so freely." "Ay, that have I," quoth Robin, laughing loudly again. 500 and more horned beasts have I, and my brothers, and none of them have we been able to sell, else I might not have turned butcher. As for my land, I have never asked my steward how many acres I have." At this the sheriff's eyes twinkled, and he chuckled to himself. "Nay, good youth," quoth he, "if thou canst not sell thy cattle, it may be I will find a man that will lift them from thy hands. Perhaps that man may be myself, for I love a merry youth, and would help such a one along the path of life. Now how much dost thou want for thy horned cattle?" "Well," quoth Robin, "they are worth at least 500 pounds." "Nay," answered the sheriff slowly, as if he were thinking within himself, "well do I love thee, and fain would I help thee along, but 500 pounds in money is a good round sum. Besides, I have it not by me. Yet I will give thee 300 pounds for them all, and that in good hard silver and gold." "Now, thou old miser," quoth Robin, "well thou knowest that so many horned cattle are worth 700 pounds, and more, and even that is but small for them. And yet thou, with thy grey hairs and one foot in the grave, wouldst thou trade upon the folly of a wild youth? At this the sheriff looked grimly at Robin. Nay, quoth Nay, quoth Robin, look not on me as though thou hadst sour beer in thy mouth, man. I will take thine offer, for I and my brothers do need the money. We lead a merry life, and no one leads a merry life for a farthing. So I will close the bargain with thee. But mind that thou bringest a good £300 with thee, for I trust not one that driveth so shrewd a bargain. I will bring the money, said the sheriff, but what is thy name, good youth? Men call me Robert O'Locksley, quoth bold Robin. So he gave him his real name. Then, good Robert O'Locksley, quoth the sheriff, I will come this day to see thy horned beasts. But first my clerk shall draw up a paper in which thou shalt be bound to the sale, for thou gettest not my money, without I get thy beasts in return. Then Robin Hood laughed again. So be it, he cried, smiting his palm upon the sheriff's hand. Truly my brothers will be thankful to thee for thy money. Another little drink of water. Thus the bargain was closed. But many of the butchers talked among themselves of the sheriff, saying that it was but a scurvy trick to beguile a poor spendthrift youth in this way. The afternoon had come when the sheriff mounted his horse and joined Robin Hood, who stood outside the gateway of the paved court waiting for him, for he had sold his horse and cart to a trader for 2 marks. Then they set forth upon their way, the sheriff riding upon his horse, and Robin running beside him. Thus they left Nottingham town and travelled forward along the dusty highway, laughing and jesting together as though they had been old friends. But all the time the sheriff said within himself, Thy jest to me of Robin Hood shall cost thee dear, good fellow, even £400, thou fool. For he thought he would make at least that much by his bargain. So they journeyed onward, till they came within the verge of Sherwood Forest, when presently the sheriff looked up and down, and to the right and to the left of him, and then grew quiet, and ceased his laughter. And now, quoth he, may heaven and its saints preserve us this day from a rogue man called Robin Hood. Then Robin laughed aloud. Nay, said he, thou mayest set thy mind at rest. For well do I know Robin Hood, and well do I know that thou art in no more danger from him this day than thou art from me. That is clever. One moment, my dear scholars. Sorry, I can hear Virgil in the background moving about. Sorry about that. Where was I? At this, the sheriff looked aghast at Robin, saying to himself, I like not that thou seemest so well acquainted with this bold outlaw, and I wish that I were well out of Sherwood Forest. But still they travelled deeper into the forest shades, and the deeper they went, the more quiet grew the sheriff. At last they came to where the road took a sudden bend, and before them a herd of dun deer went tripping across the path. Then Robin Hood came close to the sheriff, and pointing his finger, he said, These are my horned beasts, good master sheriff. How dost thou like them? Are they not fat and fair to see? At this the sheriff drew rein quickly. Now, fellow, quoth he, I would I were well out of this forest, for I like not thy company. Go thou thine own path, good friend, and let me but go mine. But Robin only laughed and caught the sheriff's bridle rein. Nay, cried he, stay a while, for I would thou shouldst seize my brothers who own these fair horned beasts with me. So saying, he clapped his bugle to his horn, and winded 3 merry notes. And presently up the path came leaping 50 good stout yeomen, with Little John at their head. "What wouldst thou have, good master?" quoth Little John. "Why," answered Robin, "dost thou not see that I have brought goodly company to feast with us today? Fay, for shame! Do you not see our good and worshipful master, the Sheriff of Nottingham? Take thou his bridle, Little John, for he has honoured us today by coming to feast with us." Then all doffed their hats humbly, without smiling or seeming to be in jest, while Little John took the bridle rein and led the palfrey still deeper into the forest, all marching in order, with Robin Hood walking beside the sheriff, hat in hand. All this time the sheriff said never a word, but only looked about him like one suddenly awakened from sleep. Excuse me. But when he found himself going within the very depth of Sherwood, his heart sank within him, for he thought, "Surely my £300 will be taken from me, even if they take not my life itself, for I have plotted against their lives more than once." But all seemed humble and meek, and not a word was said of danger, either to life or money. So at last they came to that part of Sherwood Forest where a noble oak spread its branches wide, and beneath it was a seat all made of moss, on which Robin sat down, placing the sheriff at his right hand. "Now, busk ye, my merry men all," quoth he, "and bring forth the best we have, both of meat and wine, for his worship the sheriff hath feasted me in Nottingham Guildhall today, and I would not have him go back empty." All this time nothing had been said of the sheriff's money, so presently he began to pluck up heart. "For," said he to himself, "maybe Robin Hood hath forgotten all about it." I got another drink of water. Then, whilst beyond in the forest bright fires cackled, and savory smells of sweetly roasting venison and fat capons filled the glade, and brown pasties warmed beside the blaze, did Robin Hood entertain the sheriff right royally. First, several couples stood forth at quarterstaff, and so shrewd were they at the game, and so quickly did they give stroke and parry, that the sheriff, who loved to watch all lusty sports of the kind, clapped his hands, forgetting where he was, and crying aloud, well struck, thou fellow with the black beard," little knowing that the man he called upon was the tinker that tried to serve his warrant upon Robin Hood. Then the best archers of the band set up a fair garland of flowers at the 80 paces distance, and shot at it with the cunningest archery practice. But the sheriff grew grave, for he did not like this so well, the famous meeting at the butts at Nottingham town being still green in his memory, and the golden arrow that had been won there hanging close behind him. Then when Robin saw what was in the sheriff's mind, he stopped the sport, and called forth some of his band, who sang merry ballads, while others made music upon the harps. When this was done, several yeomen came forward, and spread cloths upon the green grass, and placed a royal feast, while others still broached barrels of sack and malmsey and good stout ale, and set them in jars upon the cloth, with drinking horns about them. Then all sat down and feasted and drank merrily together, until the sun was low, and the half moon glimmered with a pale light betwixt the leaves of the trees overhead. Then the sheriff arose and said, "I thank you all, good yeomen, for the merry entertainment ye have given me this day. Right courteously have ye used me, showing therein that ye have much respect for our glorious king and his deputy in brave Nottinghamshire. But the shadows grow long, and I must away before darkness comes, lest I lose myself within the forest." Then Robin Hood and all his merry men arose also, and Robin said to the sheriff, "If thou must go, worshipful sir, go thou must, but thou hast forgotten one thing." "Nay, I forgot not," said the sheriff, yet all the same his heart sank within him. "But I say thou hast forgot something," quoth Robin. "We keep a merry inn here in the greenwood, but whoever becometh our guest must pay his reckoning." Then the sheriff laughed, but the laugh was hollow. "Well, jolly boys," quoth he, "we have had a merry time together today, and even if ye had not asked me, I would have given you a score of pounds for the sweet entertainment I have had." "Nay, nay," quoth Robin seriously, it would ill beseem us to treat your worship so meanly. By my faith, Sir Sheriff, I'd be ashamed to show my face if I did not reckon the king's deputy at £300. Is it not so, my merry men all?" Then, "Aye!" cried all in a loud voice. "300 devils!" roared the sheriff. "Think ye that your beggarly feast was worth £3, let alone 300?" "Nay," quoth Robin gravely, "speak not so roundly, your worship. I do love thee for the sweet feast thou hast given me this day in merry Nottingham town, but there be those here who love thee not so much. If thou wilt look down the cloth, thou wilt see, excuse me, Will Stuteley, in whose eyes thou hast no great favour. Then 2 other stout fellows are there here that thou knowest not, that were wounded in a brawl nigh Nottingham town some time ago. Thou wottest Swin, one of them was sore hurt in one arm, yet he hath got the use of it again. Good sheriff, be advised by me. Pay thy score without much more ado, or maybe it may fare ill with thee." As he spoke, the sheriff's ruddy cheeks grew pale, and he said nothing more, but looked upon the ground and gnawed his nether lip. Then slowly he drew forth his fat purse and threw it upon the cloth in front of him. "Now take the purse, Little John," quoth Robin Hood, "and see that the reckoning be right. We would not doubt our sheriff, but he might not like it if he should find he had not paid his full score." Then Little John counted the money and found that the bag held £300 in silver and gold. But to the sheriff it seemed as if every clink of the bright money was a drop of blood from his veins. And when he saw it all counted out in a heap of silver and gold filling a wooden platter, he turned away and silently mounted his horse. "Never have we had so worshipful a guest before," quoth Robin, "and as the day waxeth late, I will send one of my young men to guard thee out of the forest depths." "Nay, heaven forbid," cried the sheriff hastily. "I can find mine own way, good man, without aid." "Then I will put thee on the right track mine own self," quoth Robin, and taking the sheriff's horse by the bridle rein, he led him into the main forest path. Then, before he let him go, he said, "Now fare thee well, good sheriff, and when next thou thinkest to despoil some poor prodigal, remember thy feast in Sherwood Forest. Ne'er buy a horse, good friend, without first looking into its mouth, as our good gaffer Swathold says. And so once more, fare thee well." And then he clapped his hand to the horse's back, and off went nag and sheriff through the forest glades. Then bitterly the sheriff rued the day that first he meddled with Robin Hood, for all men laughed at him, and many ballads were sung by folk throughout the country of how the sheriff went to shear and came home shone to the very quick. For thus men sometimes overreach themselves through greed and guile. Oh dear. Poor sheriff. I don't think it went well for him, my dear scholars. Do you? Ah, that version, of course, is that chapter is often adapted in a lot of Sherlock Holmes stories. It's one of my favorites, actually. Firefly, not really. Oh, yes, yes. All right. So I'm going to attempt 3 chapters tonight, so it's going to be a little bit tough. We'll see if I can manage it. 2. Little John goes to the fair at Nottingham Town. Firefly, sorry for the silence. I'm making cookies. Oh! Do you have enough for everyone? I mean, I know Horace adores cookies. What kind of cookies are there, Firefly? I am curious. Snickerdoodles! Oh my goodness, snickerdoodles are so good. They're one of my favorite cookies. And they're one of Horace's favorite cookies, of course. Oh, snickerdoodles are so good. I never get tired of them. Oh, hello there, Kintron. Welcome. You have summoned Kintron with the talk of cookies. You're testing a gluten-free version. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I hope it turns out. Now we will tell of the merry adventures that befell Little John at the shooting match at Nottingham, and how he overcame Eric O'Lincoln in the famous bout at quarterstaff in that town. Also how he entered the sheriff's service, and of his merry encounter with the sheriff's cook. So listen to what follows. Spring had gone since the sheriff's feast in Sherwood, and summer also, and the mellow month of October had come. All the air was cool and fresh, and harvests were gathered home. The young birds were full fledged, the hops were plucked, and apples were ripe. And though time had so smoothed things over that men no longer talked of the horned beast that the sheriff wished to buy, he was still sore about the matter, and could not bear to hear Robin Hood's name spoken in his presence. With October had come the time for holding the great fair, which was celebrated every 5 years at Nottingham Town, to which folk came from far and near throughout the country. At such times archery was always the main sport of the day, for the Nottinghamshire yeomen were the best hand at the longbow in all merry England. But this year the sheriff hesitated a long time before he issued proclamation of the fair, fearing lest Robin Hood and his band might come to it. At first he had a great part of a mind not to proclaim the fair, but second thought told him that men would laugh at him and say amongst themselves that he was afraid of Robin Hood. So he put that thought by. At last he fixed in his mind that he would offer such a prize as they would not care to shoot for. At such times it had been the custom to offer a half score of marks or a tun of ale. So this year he proclaimed that a prize of 2 fat steers should be given to the best bowman. When Robin Hood heard what had been proclaimed, he was vexed, and said, "Now beshrew this sheriff that he should offer such a prize that none but shepherd hinds will care to shoot for it. I would have loved nothing better than to have had another bout at merry Nottingham Town, but if I should win this prize, not would it be pleasure or profit me." Then up spoke Little John. "Nay, but hearken, good master," said he. "Only to-day Will Stuteley, yon David of Doncaster, and I were at the sign of the Blue Boar, and there we heard all the news of this merry fair, and also that the sheriff hath offered this prize, that we of Sherwood might not care to come to the fair. So, good master, if thou wilt, I would fain to go and strive to win even this poor thing among the stout yeomen who will shoot at Nottingham Town." "Nay, Little John," quoth Robin, "thou art a sound stout fellow, yet thou lackest the cunning that good Stuteley hath, and I would not have harm befall thee for all Nottinghamshire. Nevertheless, if thou wilt go, take some disguise, lest there be those there who may know thee. So be it, good master, quoth Little John. Yet all the disguise that I wish is a good suit of scarlet instead of this of Lincoln green. I will draw the cowl of my jacket about my head so that I'm fumbling over my words, so that it will hide my brown hair and beard, and then I trust no one will know me. Firefly, well, the timing on these is certainly wrong. Tasty though. Ah, well, at least it tastes good, I suppose. It is much against my will, said Robin Hood. Ne'ertheless, if thou dost wish it, get thee gone. But bear thyself seemingly, Little John, for thou art mine own right-hand man, and I could ill bear to have harm befall thee. So Little John clad himself all in scarlet and started off to the fair at Nottingham Town. Right merry were these fair days at Nottingham, when the green before the great town gate was dotted with booths standing in rows, with tents of many-colored canvas hung about with streamers and garlands of flowers. And the folk came from all the countryside, both gentle and common. In some booths there was dancing to merry music, in others flowed ale and beer, and in others, yet again, sweet cakes and barley sugar were sold. And sport was going outside the booths also, where some minstrel sang ballads of the olden time, playing a second upon the harp, or where the wrestlers struggled with one another within the sawdust ring. But the people gathered, most of all around a raised platform where stout fellows played at quarterstaff. So Little John came to the fair. All scarlet were his hose and jerkin, and scarlet was his cowled cap, with a scarlet feather stuck in the side of it. Over his shoulder was slung a stout bow of yew, and across his back hung a quiver of good round arrows. Many turned to look after such a stout tall fellow, for his shoulders were broader by a palm's breadth than any that were there, and he stood a head taller than all the other men. The lasses also looked at him like askance, thinking they had never seen a lustier youth. First of all he went to the booth where stout ale was sold, and standing aloft on a bench he called to all that were near to come and drink with him. "Hoy, sweet lads," cried he, "who will drink ale with a stout yeoman? Come all, let us be merry, for the day is sweet, and the ale is tingling. Come hither, good yeoman, and thou, for not a farthing shall one of you pay. Nay, turn hither, thou lusty beggar, and thou jolly tinker, for all shall be merry with me." Thus he shouted, and all crowded around, laughing while the brown ale flowed, and they called Little John a brave fellow, each swearing that he loved him as his own brother, for when one has entertainment with nothing to pay, one loves the man that gives it to one. The next place Little John went to was the dancing booth, where three men made sweet music with bagpipes. Here he laid aside his bow and his quiver and joined in the sport, dancing so long that none could stand against him. A score of lasses came one after another and strove to dance him down, but could not do so, for Little John leaped so high, snapping his fingers the while, and shouted so loud that every lass vowed that she had never seen so sweet a lad in all her life before. Then, after he had danced for a long time, he strolled to the platform where they were at cudgel play, for he loved a bout at quarterstaff as he loved meat and drink, and here befell an adventure that was sung in ballads throughout the mid-country for many a day. Now, it is interesting to note, of course, that Howard Pyle, what he did is he took a lot of different ballads and a lot of different information across the Robin Hood legend and combined them. So when he talks about, this is from a ballad that many people would sing, this is actually from a ballad, this story, that was separate from the usual Robin Hood legends. One fellow there was that cracked crowns of everyone who threw cap into the ring. This was Eric Lincoln of great renown, whose name had been sung in ballads throughout the countryside. When Little John reached the stand, he found none fighting, but only bold Eric walking up and down the platform, swinging his staff and shouting lustily, "Now who will come and strike a stroke for the lass he loves the best, or the good Lincolnshire yeoman? How now, lads? Step up, step up, or else the lass's eyes are not bright hereabouts, for the blood of Nottingham youth is sluggish and cold. Lincoln against Nottingham, says I, for no one hath put foot upon the boards this day, such as we of Lincoln call a cudgel play. Yeah." At this one would nudge another with his elbow, saying, "Go thou, Ned," or "Go thou, Thomas." But no lad cared to gain a cracked crown for nothing. Presently Eric saw where Little John stood among the others, a head and shoulders above them all, and he called to him loudly. I need another drink of water. He called to him loudly, "I need another drink of water." "Hello, thou long-legged fellow in scarlet, broad are thy shoulders and thick thy head. Is not thy lass fair enough?" Then the people shouted so loud, I skipped a page, "for thee to take cudgel in hand for her sake. In truth I believe that Nottingham men do turn to bone and sinew, for neither heart nor courage have they. Now thou, great lout, wilt thou not twirl staff for Nottingham?" "Aye," quoth Little John, "had I but mine own good staff here, it would be pleasure me hugely to crack thy knave's pate, thou saucy braggart. I wot it would be well for thee and thy coxcomb were caught." Thus he spoke slowly at first, for he was slow to move, but his wrath gathered headway like a great stone rolling down a hill, so that at the end he was full of anger. Then Eric Lincoln laughed aloud. "Well spoken for one who fears to meet me fairly man to man," said he. "Saucy art thou thine own self, and if thou puttest foot upon these boards, I will make thy saucy tongue rattle within thy teeth." "Now," quoth Little John, "is there never a man here that will lend me a good stout staff, till I try the mettle of yon fellow?" At this, half a score reached him their staves, and he took the stoutest and heaviest of them all. Then, looking up and down the cudgel, he said, "Now, I have in my hand but a splint of wood, a barley straw, as it were. Yet I trow it will have to serve me, so here goeth." Thereupon he cast the cudgel upon the stand, and leaping lightly after it, snatched it up in his hands again. Oh my goodness, that's actually that sounds pretty acrobatic for a man his size. Then each man stood in his place and measured the other with fell looks until he that directed the sport cried, "Play!" At this they stepped forth, each grasping his staff tightly in the middle. Then those that stood around saw the stoutest game of quarterstaff that e'er Nottingham town beheld. At first Eric Lincoln thought that he would gain an easy advantage, so he came forth as if he would say, "Watch, good people, how that I carve you this cockerel right speedily." But he presently found it to be no such speedy matter. Right deftly he struck, and with great skill of fence, but he had found his match in Little John. Once, twice, thrice he struck, and 3 times Little John turned the blows to the left hand and to the right. Then quickly and with a dainty backhanded blow, he rapped Eric beneath his guard so shrewdly that it made his head ring again. Then Eric stepped back to gather his wits with a great shout while a great shout went up, and all were glad that Nottingham had cracked Lincoln's crown, and thus ended the first bout of the game. Then presently the director of the sport cried, "Play!" and they came together again. But now Eric played warily, for he found his man was a right good metal, and also he had no sweet memory of the blow that he had got. So this bout neither Little John nor the Lincoln man caught a stroke within his guard. Then after a while they parted again, and this made the second bout. Then for the third time they came together, and at first Eric strove to be wary, as he had been before. But, growing mad at finding himself so foiled, he lost his wits and began to rain blows so fiercely and so fast that they rattled like hail on penthouse roof. But in spite of all, he did not reach within Little John's guard. Then at last Little John saw his chance and seized it right cleverly. Once more, with a quick blow, he rapped Eric beside the head, and ere he could regain himself, Little John slipped his right hand down to his left, and with a swinging blow smote the other so sorely upon the crown that down he fell, as though he would never move again. I have to say, Howard Pyle writes a fight scene very well. I mean, it's he doesn't. I'm going to compliment this author right now. He writes a fight scene fantastic. I mean, the way he describes each move is really well done. And he doesn't go into so much detail as to make it overly complicated, just enough detail to, you know, make it work. Kintron, no one wants John to hit them. That is true. I would not either. Then the people shouted so loud that folk came running from all across to see what was the ado, while Little John leaped down from the stand and gave the staff back to him that had lent it to him. And thus ended the famous bout between Little John and Eric O'Lincoln of great renown. But now the time had come when those who were to shoot with the longbow were to take their places. So the people began flocking to the butts where the shooting was to be. Near the target, in a good place, sat the sheriff upon a raised dais, with many gentlefolk around him. When the archers had taken their places, the herald came forward and proclaimed the rules of the game, and how each should shoot 3 shots, and to him that should shoot the best, the prize of 2 fat steers was to belong. A score of brave shots were gathered there, and among them some of the keenest hands at the longbow in Lincoln and Nottinghamshire, and among them Little John stood taller than all the rest. "Who is yon sheriff? Who is yon stranger, clad all in scarlet?" said some, and others answered, "It is he that hath but now to so strongly cracked the crown of Eric Lincoln." Thus the people talked among themselves, until at last it reached even the sheriff's ear. And now each man stepped forward and shot in turn. But though each shot well, Little John was the best of all, for 3 times he struck the clout, and once only the length of a barleycorn from the center. "Hey, for the tall archer!" shouted the crowd, and some among them shouted, "Hey, for Reynold Greenleaf!" for this was the name that Little John had called himself that day. Then the sheriff stepped down from the raised seat and came to where the archers stood, while all doffed their caps that saw him coming. He looked keenly at Little John, but did not know him, though he said after a while, "How now, good fellow? Methinks there is that about thy face that I have seen ere while." "Mayhap it may be so," quoth Little John, "for often have I seen your worship." And as he spoke he looked steadily into the sheriff's eyes, so that the latter did not suspect who he was. "A brave blade art thou, good friend," said the sheriff, "and I hear that thou hast well upheld the skill of Nottinghamshire against that of Lincoln this day. What may be thy name, good fellow?" Men do call me Reynold Greenleaf, your worship, said Little John. And the old ballad that tells you this adds, So in truth was he a greenleaf, but of what manner of tree the sheriff wotted not. Now, Reynold Greenleaf, quoth the sheriff, thou art the fairest hand at the longbow thine my eyes ever beheld, next that false knave Robin Hood, from whose wiles heaven forfend me. Wilt thou join my service, good fellow? Thou shalt be paid right well, for 3 suits of clothes shalt thou have a year, with good food, and as much ale as thou can drink. And besides this, I will pay thee 40 marks each Michaelmastide. Now, this is kind of funny if you look at the text here, because essentially the sheriff is offering Little John the same offer. Excuse me, I'm just adjusting myself. The same offer that Robin Hood gave to Little John. So it's no better than what Robin Hood would offer. Then here stand I, a free man, and right gladly will I enter thy household, said Little John, for he thought he might find some merry jest should he enter the sheriff's service. Fairly hast thou won the fat steers, said the sheriff, and thereunto I will add a butt of good March beer, for joy of having gotten such a man, for I wot thou shootest as fair a shaft as Robin Hood himself. Then, said Little John, for joy of having gotten myself into thy service, I will give fat steers and brown ale to all these good folks, to make them merry withal. At this arose a great shout, many casting their caps aloft for joy of the gift. Then some built great fires and roasted the steers, oh poor cows, and others broached the butt of ale, with which all made themselves merry. Then, when they had eaten and drunk as much as they could, and when the day faded and the great moon arose, all red and round, over the spires and towers of Nottingham town, they joined hands and danced around the fires to the music of bagpipes and harps. But long before this merrymaking had begun, the sheriff and his new servant, Reynold Greenleaf, were in the castle of Nottingham. Another drink of water. We'll read one more section and then we'll call it a night, I think. 3. How Little John lived at the sheriff's house. Thus Little John entered into the sheriff's service, and found the life he led there easy enough, for the sheriff made him his right-hand man, and held him in great favor. He sat nigh the sheriff at meat, and he ran beside his horse when he went a hunting, so that what with hunting and hawking a little, and eating rich dishes and drinking good sack, and sleeping until late hours in the morning, he grew as fat as a stall-fed ox. Thus things floated easily along with the tide, until one day, when the sheriff went a hunting, there happened that which broke the smooth surface of things. This morning the sheriff and many of his men set forth to meet certain lords, to go a hunting. He looked all about him for his good man Reynold Greenleaf, but not finding him was vexed, for he wished to show Little John's skill to his noble friends. As for Little John, he lay abed, snoring lustily until the sun was high in the heavens. At last he opened his eyes and looked about him, but did not move to arise. Brightly shone the sun in at the window, and all the air was sweet with the scent of woodbine that hung in sprays about the wall without. For the cold winter was past, and spring was come again. And Little John lay still, thinking how sweet was everything on this fair morn. Just then he heard, faint and far away, a distant bugle note dropping thin and clear. The sound was sweet, but like a little pebble dropped into a glassy fountain, it broke all the smooth surface of his thoughts until his whole soul was filled with disturbance. His spirit seemed to awaken from its sluggishness, and his memory brought back to him all the merry greenwood life. How the birds were singing blithely there this bright morning, and how his loved companions and friends were feasting and making merry, or perhaps talking to him with sober speech, for when he first entered the sheriff's service he did so in jest. But the hearthstone was warm during the winter, and the fare was full, and so he had abided, putting off from day to day his going back to Sherwood, until 6 long months had passed. But now he thought of his good master, and of Will Stuteley, whom he loved better than anyone in all the world, and of young David of Doncaster, whom he had trained so well in all manly sports, till there came over his heart a great and bitter longing for them all, so that his eyes filled with tears. Then he said aloud, "Here I grow fat like a stall-fed ox, and all my manliness departeth from me, while I become a sluggard and dolt. But I will arouse me, and go back to mine own dear friends once more, and never will I leave them again till life doth leave my lips." So saying, he leaped from bed, for he hated his sluggishness now. When he came downstairs he saw the steward standing near the pantry door, a great fat man with a huge bundle of keys hanging to his girth. Then Little John said, "Ho, Master Steward, a hungry man am I, for naught have I had for all this blessed morn. Therefore give me to eat." Then the steward looked grimly at him, and rattled the keys in his girdle, for he hated Little John, because he had found favor with the sheriff. "So, Master Reynold Greenleaf, thou art an hungered, art thou?" quoth he. "But, fair youth, if thou livest long enough, thou wilt find that he who getteth over much sleep for an idle head goeth with an empty stomach. For what saith the old saw, Master Greenleaf? Is it not, the late fowl findeth but ill farings?" "Now, thou great purse of fat," cried Little John, "I ask thee not for fool's wisdom, but for bread and meat. Who art thou that thou shouldst deny me to eat? By St. Dunstan, thou hadst best tell me where my breakfast is, if thou wouldst save broken bones." "Thy breakfast, Master Fireblaze, is in the pantry," answered the steward. "Then fetch it hither," cried Little John, who waxed angrily by this time. "Go thou, and fetch it thine own self," quoth the steward. "Am I thy slave to fetch and carry for ye?" "I say, go thou, bring it to me." "I say, go thou, fetch it for thyself." "Ay, marry that will I, right quickly," quoth Little John in a rage, and so saying he strode to the pantry and tried to open the door, but found it locked, whereat the steward laughed and rattled his keys. Then the wrath of Little John boiled over, and lifting his clenched fist, he smote the pantry door, bursting out 3 panels, and making so large an opening that he could easily stoop and walk through it. When the steward saw what was done, he waxed mad with rage, and as Little John stooped to look within the pantry, he seized him from behind by the nape of the neck, pinching him sorely, and smiting him over the head with his keys till the yeoman's ears rang again. Need another drink of water? At this, Little John turned upon the steward and smote him such a buffet that the fat man fell to the floor and lay there as though he would never move again. That seems to be a pattern with anyone who Little John hits. "There!" quoth Little John. "Think well of that stroke, and never keep a good breakfast from a hungry man again." So saying, he crept into the pantry and looked about him to see if he could find something to appease his hunger. He saw a great venison pasty and 2 roasted capons, beside which was a platter of plover's eggs. Moreover, there was a flask of sack and one of canary, a sweet sight to a hungry man. These he took down from the shelves and placed upon a sideboard, and prepared to make himself merry. Now the cook, in the kitchen across the courtyard, heard the loud talking between Little John and the steward, and also the blow that Little John struck the other. So he came running across the court and up the stairway to where the steward's pantry was, bearing in his hands the spit with the roast still upon it. Meanwhile the steward had gathered his wits about him, and risen to his feet, so that when the court came to the steward's pantry he saw him glowering through the broken door at Little John, who was making ready for a good repast, as one dog glowers at another that has a bone. When the steward saw the cook he came to him, and putting one arm over his shoulder, "Alas, sweet friend," quoth he, for the cook was a tall, stout man, "seest thou what that vile knave Reynald Greenleaf hath done? He hath broken in upon our master's goods, and has smitten me a buffet upon the ear, so that I thought I was dead. Good cook, I love thee well, and thou shalt have a good pottle of our master's best wine every day, for thou art an old and faithful servant. Also, good cook, I have 10 shillings that mean to give as a gift to thee. But hatest thou not to see a vile upstart like this Reynald Greenleaf taking it upon him so bravely?" "Ay, marry that do I," quoth the cook boldly, for he liked the steward because of his talk of the wine and of the 10 shillings. "Get thee gone straight away to thy room, and I will bring out this knave by his ears." So saying, he laid aside his spit and drew the sword that hung by his side, whereupon the steward left as quickly as he could, for he hated the sight of naked steel. Then the cook walked straight away to the broken pantry door, through which he saw Little John tucking a napkin beneath his chin, and preparing to make himself merry. "Why, how now, Reynald Greenleaf?" said the cook. "Thou art no better than a thief, I wot. Come thou straight forth, man, and I'll carve thee as I would carve a suckling pig." "Nay, good cook, bear thou thyself more seemly, or else I will come forth to thy dole. At most times I am a yearling lamb, but when one cometh between me and my meat, I am a raging lion, as it were." "Lion or no lion," quoth the valorous cook, "come thou straight forth, else thou art a coward heart, as well as a knavish thief." "Ha!" cried Little John, "coward's name have I never had. So look to thyself, good cook, for I come forth straight, the roaring lion I did speak of but now." Then he too drew his sword and came out of the pantry. Then putting themselves into position, they came slowly together with grim and angry looks. But suddenly Little John lowered his point. "Hold, good cook," said he. "Now I bethink me it were ill of us to fight with good victuals standing so nigh, and such a feast as would befit 2 stout fellows such as we are. Marry, good friend, I think we should enjoy this fair feast ere we fight. What sayest thou, jolly cook?" At this speech the cook looked up and down, scratching his head in doubt, for he loved good feasting. At last he drew a long breath, and said to Little John, Well, good friend, I like thy plan right well. So, pretty boy, says I, let us feast with all my heart, for one of us may sup in paradise before nightfall. So each thrust his sword back into the scabbard and entered the pine tree. Then, after they had seated themselves, Little John drew his dagger and thrust it into the pie. A hungry man must be fed, quoth he. So, sweet chuck, I help myself without leave. But the cook did not lag far behind, for straightway his hands also were deeply thrust within the goodly pasty. After this neither of them spoke further, but used their teeth to better purposes. But though neither spoke, they looked at one another, each thinking within himself that he had never seen a more lusty fellow than the one across the board. And I keep hearing the word lusty used, and it bothers me. I mean, they use it constantly in this story. It's just, I know what they mean, but it kind of takes me out of the story a little bit. At last, after a long time had passed, the cook drew a few full, deep breaths, as though of much regret, and wiped his hands upon the napkin, for he could eat no more. Little John also had had enough, for he pushed the pasty aside, as though he would say, Won't thee buy me no more, good friend? Then he took the pottleless sack, and said he, Now, good fellow, I swear by all that is bright, that thou art the stoutest companion at eating that ever I had. Lo, I drink thy health. So saying, he clapped the flask to his lips, and cast his eyes aloft, while the good wine flooded his throat. Then he passed the pottle to the cook, who also said, Lo, I drink thy health, sweet fellow. Nor was he behind Little John in drinking, any more than in eating. Now, quoth Little John, thy voice is right round and sweet, jolly lad. I doubt not thou canst sing a ballad most blithely, canst thou not? Truly I have trolled one now and then, quoth the cook, yet I would not sing alone. Nay, truly, said Little John, that were but ill courtesy. Strike up thy ditty, and I will afterwards sing one to match it, if I can. So be it, pretty boy. And hast thou e'er heard the song of the deserted shepherdess? Truly, I know not, answered Little John, but sing thou away, and let me hear. Then the cook took another draught from the pottle, and clearing his throat, sang right sweetly. Oh my goodness, this next few pages are all songs. It's time for ballad singing, my dear scholars. So this one's called The Song of the Deserted Shepherdess. And of course, it's probably going to be terrible. I'm sorry. In Lenten time, when leaves wax green, and pretty birds begin to mate, when lark doth sing and thrush I ween, and stock dove cootheth soon and late, fair Phyllis sat beside a stone, and thus I heard her make her moan. Oh, willow, 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 I'll take me for thy branches fair, and twine a wreath to deck my hair. The thrust hath taken him a she, the robin too, and eke the dove. My robin hath deserted me, and left me for another love. So here by brookside all alone, I sat me down and make my moan. O willow, 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 I'll take me of thy branches fair, and twine a wreath to deck my hair. But ne'er came herring from the sea, but good as he were in the ride. Young Corydon came o'er the lea, and sat him Phyllis down beside. So presently she changed her tone, and gained to cease her from her moan. O willow, 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 thou mayest e'en keep thy garlands fair. I want them not to deck my hair. Thank you, thank you. Now, by my faith, cried Little John, that same is a right good son, and hath truth in it also. Glad am I thou like it, sweet lad, said the cook. Now sing one thou not what now sing thou one also, for neither should a man be merry alone, or sing and list not. Oh my goodness. I gotta sing as Little John. Oh no. Then I will sing thee a song of a right good knight of Arthur's court, and how he cured his heart's wound without running upon the dart again, as did thy Phyllis. For I wot she'd but cure one smart by giving herself another. So list thou while I sing. Oh my goodness, I gotta sing as Little John. Oh no. I don't know if you scholars have ever tried, but it is very hard singing in character voices. Very hard. Especially a voice like Little John. This is the good knight and his love. When Arthur King did rule this land, a goodly knight king he was he, and had he of stout knights a band, of merry company. Amongst them all, both great and small, a good stout knight was there, a lusty child and etiquette tall, that loved a lady fair. But naught would she to do with him, but turned her face away. So gat he gone to fair country, and left that lady gay. Then all alone he made his moan, and eke did sob and sigh, and weep till it would move a stone, and he was like to die. But still his heart did feel the smart, and eke the dire distress, and rather grew his pain more sharp, as grew his body less. Then gat he back winner was good sack and merry compagnie, and soon did cease to cry alack, when blithe and gay was he. From which I hold and feel full bold to say and eke believe, that gin the belly go not cold, the heart will cease to grieve. Now by my faith, cried the cook, as he rattled the pottle against the sideboard, I like that same song hugely, and eke the motive of it, which lieth like a sweet kernel in a hazel nut. And now thou art a man of shrewd opinions, quoth Little John, and I love thee truly as thou wert my brother. And I love thee too, but the day draweth on, and I have my cooking to do ere our master cometh home. So let us and go and settle this brave fight we have in hand. Ay, merrily, quoth Little John, and that right speedily. Never have I been more lagged in fighting than in eating and drinking. So come thou straight forth into the passageway, where there is good room to swing a sword, and I will try to serve thee. So they went from being friends to immediately saying, "Hey, let's fight." That just seems like such a Little John thing to do. Then they both stepped forth into the broad passage that led to the steward's pantry, where each man drew his sword again, and without more ado fell upon the other as though he would hew his fellow limb from limb. Then their swords clashed upon one another with great din, and sparks flew from each blow in showers. So they fought up and down the hall for an hour and more, neither striking the other a blow, though they strove their best to do so. For both were skilled at the fence, so nothing came of it of all their labor. Ever and anon they rested, panting then after getting their wind. Then, after getting their wind at it, they would go again more fiercely than ever. At last Little John cried aloud, "Hold, good cook!" Whereupon each rested upon his sword, panting. "Now will I make my vow," quoth Little John. "Thou art the very best swordsman that ever mine eyes beheld. Truly I had thought to carve thee ere now." "And I had thought to do the same by thee," quoth the cook, "but I have missed the mark somehow." Sorry. "Now I have been thinking within myself," quoth Little John, "what we are fighting for, but Aylbert I do not rightly know." "Why, no more do I," said the cook. "I bear no love for that poshy Stuart, but I thought we had engaged to fight with one another, and that it must be done. Now," quoth Little John, "it doth seem to me that instead of striving to cut one another's throats, it were better for us to be boon companions. What sayest thou, jolly cook? Wilt thou go with me to Sherwood Forest and join with Robin Hood's band? Thou shalt live a merry life within the woodlands, and 70 good companions shalt thou have, one of whom is mine own self. Thou shalt have 2 suits of Lincoln green each year, and 40 marks in pay." "Now thou art a man after mine own heart," cried the cook right heartily, "and as thou speakest of it, that is the very service for me. I will go with thee, and that right gladly. Give me thy palms, sweet fellow, and I will be thine own companion from henceforth. What may be thy name, lad?" "Men do call me Little John, good fellow." "How? And art thou indeed Little John, and Robin Hood's own right-hand man? Many a time and oft have I heard of thee, but never did I hope to set eyes upon thee, and thou art indeed the famous Little John." And the cook seemed lost in amazement and looked upon his companion with open eyes. "I am Little John indeed, and I will bring to Robin Hood this day a right stout fellow to join his merry band. But ere we go, good friend, it seemeth to me to be a vast pity that, as we have had so much of the good sheriff's food, we should not also carry off some of his silver plate to Robin Hood as a present from his worship." "Ay, merry is it," said the cook. And so they began hunting about and took as much silver as they could lay hands upon, clapping it into a bag, and when they had filled the sack, they set forth to Sherwood Forest. Oh, nice. He made a friend. Plunging into the woods, they came at last to the greenwood tree, where they found Robin Hood and 70 of his merry men lying upon the fresh green grass. When Robin and his men saw who it was that came, they leaped to their feet. "Now welcome," cried Robin Hood. "Now welcome, Little John, for long hath it been since we have heard from thee. Though we all knew that thou hast joined the sheriff's service, and how hast thou fared all these long days?" "Right merrily have I lived at the Lord Sheriff's," answered Little John, "and I have come straight thence. See, good master, I have brought thee his cook, and even his silver plates." Thereupon he told Robin Hood and his merry men that were there all that had befallen him, since he had left them to go to the fair at Nottingham Town. Then all shouted with laughter, except Robin Hood, but he looked grave. "Nay, Little John," said he, "thou art a brave blade and a trusty fellow. I am glad thou hast brought thyself back to us, and with such a good companion as the cook, whom we all welcome to Sherwood. But I like not so well that thou hast stolen the sheriff's plate like some paltry thief. The sheriff hath been punished by us, and hath lost £300, even as he sought to despoil another. But he hath done not as that but he hath done not that we should steal his household plate from him." Though Little John was vexed with this, he strove to pass it off with a jest. "Nay, good master," quoth he, "if thou thinkest the sheriff gave us not the plate, I will fetch him, that he may tell us with his own lips he giveth all to us." So saying, he leaped to his feet and was gone before Robin Hood could call him back. Little John ran for full 5 miles till he came to where the Sheriff of Nottingham and a gay company were hunting near the forest. When Little John came to the sheriff, he doffed his cap and bent his knee. "God save thee, good master," quoth he. "Why, Reynold Greenleaf," cried the sheriff, "whence comest thou, and where hast thou been?" "I have been in the forest," answered Little John, speaking amazingly, "and there I saw a sight such as ne'er before man's eyes beheld. Yonder I saw a young hart, all in green from top to toe, and about him was a herd of 60 deer, and they too were all in green from head to toe. Yet I dare not shoot, good master, for fear lest they should slay me." "Why, how now, Reynolds Greenleaf?" cried the sheriff. "Art thou dreaming, or art thou mad, that thou dost bring me such a tale?" "Nay, I am not dreaming, nor am I mad," said Little John, "and if thou wilt come with me, I will show thee this fair sight, for I have seen it with mine own eyes. But thou must come alone, good master, lest the others frighten them, and they get away." So the party all rode forward, and Little John led them downward into the forest. "Now, good master," quoth he at last, "we are nigh where I saw this herd." Then the sheriff descended from his horse, and bade them wait for him until he should return, and Little John led him forward through a closed copse, until suddenly they came to a great open glade, at the end of which Robin Hood sat beneath the shade of the great oak tree, with his merry men all about him. "See, good master sheriff," quoth Little John, "yonder is the hart of which I spake to thee." At this the sheriff turned to Little John and said bitterly, "Long ago I thought I remembered thy face, but now I know thee. Woe betide thee, Little John, for thou hast betrayed me this day." Then Little John laughed aloud. "Good master sheriff," said he, "thou dost indeed know me, and I am Little John. But let me tell thee, all this would not have happened had not thy beggarly steward starved me, and had he given me food to eat when I asked it. But he gave none to me. The green hart will give thee another feast. But if he gave none to me, the green hart will give thee another feast. And when thou goest back, tell thy steward the time will come when he and I shall have a reckoning." In the meantime Robin Hood had come to them. "Now, welcome, master sheriff," said he. "Hast thou come today to take another feast with me?" "Nay, heaven forbid," said the sheriff in tones of deep earnest. "I care for no feast, and have no hunger today." "Nevertheless," quoth Robin, "if thou hast no hunger, maybe thou hast thirst, and well I know thou wilt take a cup of sack with me. But I am grieved that thou wilt not feast with me, for thou couldst have victuals to thy liking, for there stands thy cook." Then he led the sheriff with will he nil he Willy nilly. Oh, willy nilly. That's what it says. Oh, interesting how it's spelled. Willy nilly to the seat he knew so well beneath the greenwood tree. Ho, lads! cried Robin. Fill our good friend the sheriff a right brimming cup of sack, and fetch it hither, for he is faint and weary. Then one of the band brought the sheriff a cup of sack, bowing low as he handed it to him. But the sheriff could not touch the wine, for he saw it served in one of his own silver flagons, on one of his own silver plates. How now? quoth Robin. Dost thou not like our new silver service? We have gotten a bag of it this day. So saying, he held up the sack of silver that Little John and the cook had brought with them. Then the sheriff's heart was bitter within him, but, not daring to say anything, he only gazed upon the ground. Robin looked keenly at him for a time before he spoke again. Then said he, Now, Master Sheriff, the last time thou camest to Sherwood Forest thou didst come seeking to despoil a poor spendthrift, and thou wouldst despoil thine own self. But now thou comest seeking to do no harm. Nor do I know that thou hast despoiled any man. I take my tithes from fat priests and lordly squires to help those that they despoil, and to raise up those that they bow down. But I know not that thou hast tenants of thine own, whom thou hast wronged in any way. Therefore, take thou thine own again, nor will I dispossess thee today of so much as one farthing. Come with me, and I will lead thee from the forest back to thine own party again. Then, slinging the bag upon his shoulder, he turned away, the sheriff following him, all too perplexed in mind to speak. So they went forward until they came to within a furlong of the spot where the sheriff's companions were waiting for him. Then Robin gave the sack of silver back to the sheriff. Take thou thine own again, he said, and hearken to me, good sheriff. Take thou a piece of advice with it. Try thy servants well ere thou dost engage them again so readily. Then turning, he left the others standing bewildered, with the sack in his hands. Oh, hello there, Lady Yumi. Welcome, and thank you for the hydrate. The company that waited for the sheriff were all amazed to see him coming out of the forest bearing a heavy sack upon his shoulders. But though they questioned him, he answered never a word, acting like one who walks in a dream. Without a word, he placed the bag across his nag's back, and then, mounting, rode away, all following him. But all the time there was a great turmoil of thoughts within his head, tumbling one over the other. And thus ends the merry tale of Little John, and how he entered the sheriff's service. And we will end there. Oh, 3 chapters this time. Wow. And it was quite a merry adventure, I think. Quite a band of characters. The cook does have a name in some of the later texts. I don't know if this book names him. But now I can't remember the name either. But these were interesting chapters, really a lot of fun, and again I enjoyed the fight scenes. The fight scenes were wonderfully written. Oh, I'm sorry, Lady Yumi. What a time to join. I am sorry. Sorry you missed it. But the next time so going forward with this Robin Hood story, I am going to try and read 3 passages each time, if possible. I think we have to do that because this is a very thick book, and I think it's the only way we can get through the book without it basically slowing us down. But, the pacing of the book's actually quite good. I was quite surprised a little bit, because I think the early chapters felt a little bit sluggish to me, but these chapters got quite exciting. And it looks like the next 3 are going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be introduced to some brand new characters, and we're going to have a lot of interesting little bits of action in them. So next week, there's nothing going on Sunday, but next week, as everything goes according to plan, remember that, my dear scholars, remember that key phrase. If everything goes according to plan, we'll be having Psychonauts again on Tuesday, and we'll have more of the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood on Thursday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So let's see who there is who we can raid tonight before we go. Okay. It looks like we haven't raided Moss Mellowbun in a while. It looks like they are playing Undertale. So let's raid Moss Mellowbun tonight then. So, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye bye.